So hopefully I'll be able to find a photo now. You'll see I had a C3 before. It was the basically exactly the same frame, different colorway. They used to have 140mm discs rather than the 160s we'll talk about here. But I think that was pretty much the only difference. This one, I personally prefer the colorway of. The 160s, you don't really notice much of a difference on these roads, but if I take this out to the Alps, and certainly last year did a tapped tour on 160mm discs, you want every millimeter you can get when you're descending pretty rapidly in hot mountains. And firstly, just to talk about why I've ended up with this bike. For me, I've tried a lot of different aero racy bikes, but the geometry I can never really get on with. I've got quite a long inside leg, so I have a high saddle position, and then the saddle to bar drop just becomes a bit too extreme to me on a lot of bikes. So the C3 is really good for that because it has got that slightly longer head tube. But I've also had other bikes. The Diverge has now gone, which was featured on this channel. The Diverge went probably at the beginning of the summer. This was not a like for like change. I decided to basically split the Diverge into two. So I got a road bike and I got a mountain bike. The mountain bike didn't really last though. It really is so much slower than something like the Diverge, even though it's far more capable clearly. But for the sort of fire track, gravel, drove type road riding I was doing, it's just overkill and it took forever to get there. So that's gone. So at the moment I've just got the C3, and the C3 feels far more nimble on road than the Diverge ever could. Okay, some of the componentry then on the Cervelo. So we're looking at a mechanical group set on this one, 11 to 30 on the back, 50-34 on the chain set, which is really nice. It looks like a really nice traditional screw and bottom bracket, but it isn't. I think it's a bit of a hybrid version. I've got my old Tegra pedals on here, which are just mega reliable. I've upgraded to some Hunt 4-season gravel discs, which just have a slightly wider platform than the stock wheels. They're slightly lighter and they set up tubeless brilliantly. So I've gone with the Pirelli 32mm tubeless tyres to really take advantage of that. I've also changed across to this Supercaz bar tape, which is just brilliant. A fabric saddle, which is just preferred over the physique that it comes with. And then we've got some Cannonball XC Elite bottle cages there, which I've had no problems with at all. Haven't quite taken the stack height off yet. It's really nice. Okay, so that's a basic run through of the bike. I'll take it for a ride and we'll have a look at how it performs out on the open road. So these roads are just so badly beaten up here in the UK that a bike like this, I think, is absolutely incredible for them. 32mm tyres are just spot on, set up tubeless. It just absorbs everything that the road throws at them really, bar massive potholes. Set up at 55-60 psi, they just soak it up. So it's coming up to about 5 o'clock here in the UK, and we're halfway through October now, so nice autumnal evening. Sun's up probably for another hour or so. It's quite windy, but it's absolutely beautiful, certainly compared to yesterday where it rained solidly all day long. There's no doubt you can see by the roads. Nice pothole there just as I start to film. And this is classic, this is National Cycle Network, this road. And you can see it's still pretty badly beaten up. I'm just convinced that road bikes are not designed for British roads, and this latest surge in gravel, all-road type bikes is so suited to British riding. And that's an interesting point. I'd describe this bike definitely in the all-road category. I'm running really about as maximum as you'd want to at 32mm on this bike. You wouldn't want to go much bigger than that, so it's not really going to do much British gravel. In the US where the gravel is much finer perhaps, but not here. The wider wheelbase, it just creates such a nice bike to come downhill on. Slightly slower steering, good for the confidence, perhaps not the nippiest though when you compare it to an out-and-out race bike. What an evening to ride your bike around the beautiful lanes of Somerset. I'm a couple of miles out now from a place called Mulcheney. I'll stop there. There's a picturesque little bridge and we'll have a chat through some final thoughts on the Cervelo C3. So I'll see you there. Okay, we've made it to my favourite place in Moultrie, the little bridge here. The water level behind me is really high due to the rain that we've had the last couple of days. But let's talk about the bike. So as I alluded to earlier in the video, I've had a C3 before. I know quite a bit about them in terms of how they feel for me and what I enjoy most about it. I think I got rid of that for the Diverge, and the Diverge didn't quite work out for reasons as discussed. So the C3 for me is a really fast endurance bike. It's virtually as quick as the R3, and the aero bikes for me don't suit, so this was really an obvious choice for me for long distance miles, fast club runs on a Sunday, although I haven't done many of those this year, I have to say. And I'd do triathlons on this if I ever went back to doing some triathlons, certainly the long course stuff. Try and stick some of these modern, really wide aero rims on and some sort of 28mm, 30mm tyres, and I think this bike would be an absolute dream over a long course triathlon. No issues at all. It's clearly not designed as an aero bike, but stick some aero features on it and wear a skin suit and you'll not be far off, I think. Right, I think that's it for me then. I'm going to jump back on the bike and head home before that sun disappears completely. But if you want to know anything more about my thoughts, perhaps on the Hunt wheels or the Pirelli tyres, anything like that, then just drop it in the comments and I'll see about making another video soon. Anything you want to know about the C3, likewise, ask me in the comments. I'll try my best to reply.